I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ella Maesepp from Western Australia. Now, Ella is a member of the Australian Landcare Council also, so we've been fairly fortunate in getting a couple of members from the council. She's Landcare Program Manager at the Katanning Landcare Centre, which is 300 kilometres southeast of Perth, for those around here that don't know where that is, sort of like me. So Ella's volunteered with Landcare while she was completing her environmental science degree at Murdoch, before working for the past 10 years in Landcare in the Broadacre agriculture region of WA. Now, in 2004, Ella won the environmental category of the West Australian Youth Awards and is a founding member of the Scout Environment Awareness Program. Now, Ella is married to David, who's a cattle, sheep and grain farmer, and is mum to 1-year-old Xavier, who's not here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I do apologise straight up for my voice. I'm on the tail end of a cold, so hopefully it'll last for the next half an hour. So as I mentioned, I'm from Katanning in WA, and I actually left home on Wednesday to get here. So it is a long, long way from home. But I have been asked to come here today to talk about engaging young people in Landcare. And I think the fact that I'm from way west and you guys are way east and we're still talking about the same topic with the same issues, it really highlights that this is something that is being discussed right across Australia as something as important. And with my Australian Landcare Council hat on, I've actually been working on this issue, and I have prepared a paper on this because it is a national concern, a national topic that people are talking about. And before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge two of my ALC colleagues who helped me with this paper. One was Vicky Jo Russell from South Australia, and the other was actually Alex Gartman. So we're all here today together, so thank you. What I'd like to do first is introduce you to who these 20-somethings are. So today's 20-something-year-olds are members of Gen Y, and Gen Y are those born between 1980 and 2000. I'm a 1981 baby, so I'm at that older end of Gen Y. And there's lots of things you would have heard about Gen Y, and the words that come up would be that we're selfish, that we expect instant gratification, we want it now, that we are technologically savvy, and there's a few other things that you probably don't realise about Gen Ys. We're actually very adaptable to change, and that's the speed of the world that we've grown up in. We can be very innovative given that space to do it. We're very aware of world issues and we're well connected, particularly through our use of technology. And part of that, what we hear a lot is we think Gen Ys don't care about community, don't care about environment, and that's from that sort of selfish image that's given of us. I'll tell you right now, that's not true. To give an example, when Bob Hawke and NFF and ACF stood on the banks of the Murray River and declared the Decade of Landcare, I was 7. It was 2 days before my brother's 3rd birthday. It made no difference to us whatsoever. It was not a significant event in our lives. But what it's meant is that every Australian Gen Y has never known a world without Landcare. There has always been Landcare in our lives, whether it be doing Arbor Day plantings at school or visiting the Landcare Pavilion at the Royal Show or the Waterwise message, recycling aluminium cans. We have grown up in a culture where the environment has always been there, and so it is something that is important to us. Okay, I'm telling you that we're here, we're innovative, we're empowered, we care about the environment. Why aren't we in Landcare groups? To understand that, I'm going to do a little experiment with you guys. I'd like a show of hands, anyone who has ever wanted to learn to play a musical instrument beautifully or to speak another language fluently. Keep your hands up if you actually have. Exactly. There are very few. Just because you're interested in it, it doesn't always float to the top of the priority list. Most of us have never had the money to buy a tuba or to go and do a 6-month immersive language course in France, have we, at the time? It just hasn't got to the top of the priority list. And when you think about the decade of your 20s, for those of you who are in your 20s, like this gentleman here, think about now. Those who are a bit older, think back to what you're doing in your 20s. It's a massive transitional phase in your life, really from childhood to adulthood there. There's a heck of a lot going on. So if we want to understand how we can make Landcare a priority to these people, how Landcare fits in, we actually need to understand what are those priorities that 20-somethings are busy with, that are filling up their lives. And through my work, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and based on my own experiences as a young person and also talking with other people that are young or working with young people. And I've really distilled that there are 4 key priority areas that 20-somethings are busy with, that are filling up that decade. Let me talk you through them. The first one that we are very busy with is career. You start your 20s as a TAFE student, a uni student, apprentice, looking for work experience, trying to get your foot in the door. By the time you're hitting 30, of course, Gen Ys have a high level of self-worth. By the time we're 30, we want to be managers, don't we? We don't want to be fetching the coffee. So there is a lot of time and energy and effort in putting in getting that career established and on its way. The second thing is what I've called pushing boundaries. That's everything from us throwing the backpack on and taking off to South America or Europe. That's the elite and the adventure sports we're doing because we're young and we're strong and we're fit and we can. This is where we're getting tattoos and wearing strange clothes and doing all that sort of stuff. This is also where we're partying. Now, don't tell me none of you lot did that in your 20s. It is a very important part. The third one I call personal comforts. I just haven't found the right word, but we'll go with that. And that is very much getting set up with those material things. It's our technology. We are very tech savvy. We like all that. We're getting all our equipment. But it's also our house, our car, all those bits. Very few Gen Ys first home is a two-bedroom weatherboard. They're now $500,000 mortgages for a 4 or 5 bedroom brick and tile. Most of us don't have the mechanic skills for an old bomb. We've got a nice car. And these are all important things to us, and that puts a lot of that pressure back there on that career area that we're working on. And finally, relationships is huge. Firstly, there's that relationship within our own family. At the start of our 20s, we may be a dependent student at home living with mum and dad. And there's that changes relationship as we move out, become our own people, date, find our partner. And a lot of people by the end of their 20s are either married or with, in a steady relationship, and quite often have got kids. I had my child 9 days before I turned 30. So there's that really important thing and that pressure in finding that person and making those changes, but also the social peer relationships. I mean, we see the negative in the news, the gangs of youths. But it's sporting teams. It's spending a lot of time with the other people your own age. So you look at all that. Where the heck does Landcare and a community environment fit in there? Right, I want to park that idea for a minute, okay, for a little bit. So keep it in your minds, park, we're going to come back to that. I'm going to be a little bit cheeky with my pictures. We hear a lot about the same things right across Australia, don't we? Our Landcare group's getting old. We're all the same people. When I started in Landcare 10 years ago, my chairman was a retired grandfather. I'm now in a different Landcare group and my chairman is a retired grandfather. It's okay. But I think what we need to look at is our expectations. We're always talking, we need these young people, we need to engage young people. And there really seems to be 3 things that you actually seem to want us for. Succession planning, for that physicality that we are young and strong and fit. And also we're wanting young people to become regular members and to give that commitment. And when we're constantly not succeeding with that, we're looking at it as a failure. We're saying we're failing to engage young people. We need to engage young people. We're failing. Yeah? Yeah. So what I want to do is I think perhaps we need to flip things around. Look at it the other way. Are those the 3 things that young people are really going to come towards for? We need to stop and look at it on this way, on this angle, from where the young people really want. I would say there is a reason why our demographic of Landcare volunteers is what they are. And that's not a bad thing. And they've done a wonderful job for 25 years. So, how do we engage young people? What do we want to redefine as the success in engaging young people? Because the current definition is just coming up with failure again and again and again, isn't it? I'll use my little bridge And I'm near the Murray River, which is actually a river. We have sort of flat depressions that might have water in them. You guys have actually got water. We know, and this is what I hear, and there's a lot of frustration, that we get a lot of young people involved in Landcare through those formal structures, through junior Landcare, through schools, through scouts, through Girl Guides, through all those sorts of structures. And then over on this side, we've got all these grown-ups that are these regular volunteers. And we seem to have this giant abyss between when we leave school and when we come back over here. And this is this bit that's frustrating everyone. I really honestly believe that young people don't want to give this level here while there's so much other going on. And what we need to do as Landcare groups is to find a way to bridge this gap. Not fill it in, not dam this river, not reclaim land, but just find a way across the top, basically keeping them warm. They've got those principles of Landcare that they've built in through there, and keeping them warm till they come to a point in their lives where they go, okay, my house is sorted, I've got some financial security, the kids are at school, I'm way too old to party all night. I'm ready to give something back. I'm ready to find a cause. I'm ready to commit. Wow, I really enjoyed Landcare when I was younger. Landcare is something that I felt I gave a meaningful contribution to. That's the group I want to go back to. So we need to make sure that in this gap we're giving them those memories. So when they hit this point, we make that they've got those memories there to make that decision on. So I would say clever Landcare groups are looking to bridge the gap, not find it now. It is long-term succession planning, really. So I say the definition of successful engagement of young people is that you have one-off, easy, meaningful engagement with that individual every year or two. The result being that you engage with that person 5 to 8 times over the whole decade of their 20s. Giving them those stepping stones to keep them warm and keep them engaged in Landcare that little bit until they're ready to give back. Let me define a couple of these things. One-off, I mean not requiring a regular commitment and not expecting a regular commitment and not putting pressure on them to give that regular commitment. Easy, as in you can just turn up for that day or that weekend or whatever it is, do it and go again. It's not a complicated process. And meaningful. As I mentioned earlier, Gen Ys have a high level of self-worth. I am fabulous and I can make huge contributions to you. Work me. If you want us to turn up to lift heavy things, work us to the bone. If you want us to come and do overnight monitoring of your species, don't let us go to bed. So that when we're finished, we might be exhausted, but we can go, wow, I made a difference today. I was useful, they really did need me, and that is a really positive experience. And that's where you come back again, if you've done that. I have been to a few volunteer days where we've turned up and we've had a lot of scones and a lot of sausage sizzle and barely done any work. And we've got home at the end of the day and going, why did we bother giving a whole day for that? They really only needed us for 2 hours. So workers. So we've got this great plan. We're going to do 5 to 8 activities with these young people over this decade of the 20s so that when they're ready, they're going to come back to Landcare Group. We still actually need to get them to turn up to those one. And that's where we need to go back to those 4 key priority areas. We need to piggyback something that Landcare can get out of it onto something that they can get out of it that will meet those priority areas. If it's a priority for them and it's going to meet one of their priorities, they will turn up. So what I'm going to do now is take you through some tangible examples from WA and from other parts of Australia where Landcare groups have successfully linked a Landcare need with one of those priority areas for young people and had good success with the young people coming up, okay? So let me take you on a bit of a whirlwind trip around Australia. We'll start with career. Career is such an opportunity for Landcare. And I understand you've got a few uni campuses here, and I've heard some comments that there's a little frustration we're not getting as many out of them as we can. One suggestion I would give is a lot of uni students, especially in the environmental areas, have to do assignments and stuff. Go into those institutions at the start of the year before semester starts. Find out what their assignment needs are going to be, and then tailor something for that, your project's into that, so you can offer it. There's also some great competencies that can be done with Landcare groups. This photo here is one of our Noongar Indigenous training teams from the Landcare group north of where I am. They had to do their chemical spraying certifications. They linked it with that Landcare group's Weed of National Significance program. So they got the qualification, Landcare group got the spraying done. A suggestion I can give, even if you're not going as formal as that, if young people turn up to a day or a busy bee or whatever, give them something in writing that they can take home and put in their CV that says this is what they've done, this is how many hours they contributed, these are the skills they used. We are looking for every bit of opportunity we can find to improve our employability when we come out the other end, and we can really help with that. And Landcare is a massive network. People have got so many backgrounds. We're trying to find our ways into professional networks, and not necessarily just environment ones. I mean, you have accountants and lawyers and truck drivers and all the rest volunteering for your groups. There are professional networks there we can link into. And when I was volunteering with my local Friends of group when I was a student, they were very, very clever at this with me. They gave me a lot of opportunities to do training. They gave me a lot of things in writing, and whenever I did a uni assignment or anything there, they made me come back and present the results to their group as well, creating that link. They were savvy. I didn't realise what they were doing, but they did it. Now, in Korea, this picture up here is our young farmers. For them, their land is their career. If they want to have an aspiration of being able to farm that land and to support a family into the future, their land needs to be healthy. So we as Landcare need to be happy to support that farmer one-on-one to do on-farm works on his own property and not expect him to come join a group. I say him, and I've got a picture of Janine up there, girls as well. Not expect them to come off and do Landcare works on public land, because their priority is this future of their career, and we need to be able to support them on their property. And the young Landcare officers, we often forget about this. We have a lot of people start their careers in Landcare in those employed roles, and we don't often get the longevity of that because of our funding cycles and you know all the rest that comes in. But so many young Landcarers, we can give them the opportunity to start their career, even if they move into a different industry. When that time comes, they go, wow, Landcare really helped me out on my career. That's the group I want to give back to. So there's a few examples in the career sphere. Let's get into the fun one. Pushing boundaries, love this one. This is where we can have fun. This picture's out in New South Wales, the Adventure Conservation you might have heard of. These guys need to do weeding in very inaccessible places. So the volunteers have to abseil, kayak, whitewater raft to get into these places to weed. Count me in. Fun. So they have a lot of success with that. This nice bloodstained picture up here is Red Card for Rabbits and Foxes, which is a coordinated feral animal control program we have running across 51 local government areas across the agricultural region in WA. It is our single biggest engager of young men every year. For obvious reasons, really. There's a 2-week coordinated period where we get all the farmers across the agricultural area to bait simultaneously on their properties, but each shire hosts their own fox shoot. And we get team after team of young men registering up, spending the night on the back of the ute, guns, just totally being feral themselves, really. But they come in the morning to the tally breakfast, bring the bodies in. These bodies are being used by the universities for researching feral parasites and weed spread. We've got a commercial sponsor who gives $5 to the flying doctors for every fox shot. So this is the one time a year those guys can be just total feral hooligans and make a huge contribution to Landcare through doing that. And this one here is a photo from, we have our Young Farmers Kentucky tours, with just a cheeky play on the tour company name. And it's farmers tours. Get these young guys together and get them somewhere out of their comfort zone. Go out of the district, go behind the scenes somewhere, have a bit of silliness, and give those guys and girls an opportunity to come together and really celebrate agriculture and see something different and do something cool. And while I was doing this, I actually had a bit of a flashback of the very first time I volunteered for Landcare myself off my own bat. I was 13 or 14, and a friend of mine and I decided that we'd go and help a local catchment group who were doing drain stenciling in our suburb. I grew up in Perth. You know, where the little frog logo in it to remind people that stormwater drains run into the creek. We turned up and it was the typical demographic of a Landcare group, and they were so excited that these 2 young teenagers with this great community attitude were coming to help the environment. No, we turned up because we were going to be allowed to spray paint public property. It was a great story to tell at school on Monday. And with the 20-somethings, it's not necessarily what you're telling at school, no, but it's now a great status update on Facebook if you've done something a little bit different or something you wouldn't normally get to do. And now relationships, I mentioned before, this is this huge one in trying to tap into. Young people like to be with other young people a lot. If your group's in the 60s, one 21-year-old's not going to regularly turn back up again. But what you can do is you can tap into existing groups of young people and get that whole group along, whether that be get the hockey team to come and do a day. Rover Scouts, which are 18 to 26-year-old scouts, which I know you have a lot of in Victoria, they've got to do service projects and stuff. Go in and get their entire group, and they can come and spend that time with their friends, with that existing group, and create that positive day, that positive weekend that creates that memory and that link for them, which is the picture there. Now, the Illawarra Youth Landcare group are out in New South Wales, obviously. I love them. They're a mobile Landcare group, and they're mainly made up of uni students out of their local unis. They are a Landcare group with no responsibilities. They do not have any project sites. They don't do any of their own projects. They don't have monthly meetings. They don't do any of that. What they do is they get the phone call from an existing Landcare group that says, we've got a massive weeding day and we need a whole lot of young people. And they go, okay, we'll turn up. They come in, they help the existing Landcare group on the existing project. They have a great contributing day. They finish up with something social, a barbecue, a camp out. They told me when they did a coast care one day, they actually had a surfing lesson afterwards. And then they go off again. And it's not their responsibility to follow up on that project site or the maintenance unless that group wants to call them back to help again. So they can come, do it, go, and really contribute. This picture here is Laos. Landcare Australia have got Landcare for Singles, which they have that program. You can actually, they've got all the equipment, and you just ring Lao and they'll give you the whole set of how to set up the day. It's speed dating around planting. We're looking for our life partner in our 20s. If we're outdoorsy sort of people, we're better than to find your partner at an outdoor tree planting event. And you're sure you might plant some trees that day, but if you meet that right person, awesome. I actually was the national spokesperson for the launch of this because I actually met my husband on a young farmers tour. I organised an event and my husband was one of the farmers that participated. I got a little bit more out of the day than I expected. But that's a great one to link into what young people are needing to do anyway. And this last picture here, that lake this is actually a Katanning one. This is my pride and joy, this lake. It was yellow and eutrophic a few years ago. Rural youth, we have a rural youth club, there's 20 odd members in Katanning. They wanted to do something to contribute towards this project to restore this lake. Why? A lot of them are young water skiers. You need a healthy lake. They didn't want to actually come and do Landcare. They wanted to do something social, so they put on an event. They got a band, they put on a bar, everyone brought their swag, everyone had a headache on Sunday. And the fundraising from it, they donated to the lake project. So all those young people were directly involved with Landcare by doing a social activity that didn't actually involve getting their hands dirty. And this last one in relationships, which I don't have a picture for, is contrary to popular belief, we don't hate older people. In fact, there's a lot of young people that are yearning really for a mentor, for that older person who can really support. And especially with what's happened with child protection laws, during our teens and stuff, we cannot form a close one-on-one relationship with our teacher, our sporting coach, our scout leader, someone like that, that we used to be able to. And you add in single-parent families and FIFO families. Hello, I'm from the mining boom state. We know all about FIFO families, fly-in, fly-out workers. There are a lot of people that are looking for that mentor, and Landcare is one of those great places where young people can find an older person who can become a career or a life mentor to them if they're willing. And this especially flows into that Indigenous space with passing on traditional knowledge from the elders to the younger generation. So there's another opportunity to link into getting young people in with giving them that opportunity of what they need. Now, the last of the priority areas is personal comforts, which is really, you're not going to make your millions volunteering for Landcare, nor working for Landcare. But what we are using is all this technology and all this space. And I'm not going to go into it further because there is that great workshop that Libby's running later today on using social media, basically speaking the language and speaking in the spaces that we are operating in ourselves. Okay, so hopefully that's given you just a range of ideas of how we can piggyback Landcare onto an existing priority for young people and creating those 5 to 8 memorable engagement activities over that 10 years. So these are the set of principles to it, because you've got to have principles. To be flexible. And one of those things, that Alex sort of alluded to it a little bit in her speech as well, and I mentioned Gen Ys are really cool with change. We don't mind it really. And that's succession planning. We see that groups will come, they will form, they'll have their purpose, they'll go off again. To us, that's not a problem, that a group might reach its end. It doesn't always have to be just because it always has been. Young people are much more, we like having that framework of Landcare, but within that framework we can build our own thing. So be flexible. You need to join our group, otherwise we'll close. That's not a problem, is it? If that issue is still needing to be addressed, we'll pick it up and we'll take it our way if that's what needs to happen in those groups. Social, yeah, that's that relationship side of things. We think one-off. Don't expect that commitment and don't do the, oh, it's really great to have you along. Next time, can you bring a whole lot of your friends along and the next meeting's here and if you bring everyone and we need more young people like you, out the door. We've turned up, we're great, that's cool. Creative, and that's that pushing boundaries things. Give us something really cool to tweet about afterwards. That'll give us something different to do. And that long-term outcomes and expectations. Don't expect that a young person's going to turn up on Saturday, they're going to be at your meeting as of next week. You might not be getting that return on that regular member for 10 years. But that's okay. As I mentioned, my chairman is currently a retired grandfather. But 10 years ago, he was neither retired nor a grandfather, you know. And a lot of the retirees in Landcare now, 25 years ago, they were my age. It just takes time for us to come through. So I'm hoping that what I've done today is maybe think about what our definition of successful engagement in young people is. And I'm hoping by showing you what these priority areas are, giving you some examples of how to link Landcare to those areas, will help you to go forward a little bit and engage with young people. And I would challenge you a little bit to stick your neck out, because you might catch yourself a young person. Thank you.